that. First of all, it is disturbing to me that Congress passes laws and then refuses to live under them. You know, most of the time when somebody's making a rule, that somebody ought to be willing to live according to that rule themselves. Sort of a do what we say, not as we do, sort of a problem. So I agree with you on that. There is a myth circulating out there that says that a U.S. Senator gets lifetime pay at full pay after serving one term. I've researched that. That appears to be completely false.
No, but 2 terms.
I think that is also false. They participate in the same retirement system that all federal employees get, the Federal Employee Retirement System, or FERS. It works like most retirement systems of most employers, where it's based on the mathematical formula that takes into account number of years of service and your average salary and so forth. So that part is just a myth. The broader sentiment that you're referring to is a very legitimate concern, which is we don't want people making their careers there. We don't want them viewing that as their source of wealth. It shouldn't be. And if Congress were doing only those things that Congress was created to do, we wouldn't have it even be, in my opinion, a full-time job. I don't think it should be. I think it should be something that can be done as a part-time legislature. And that's all it needs to be. Yes?
Laws already been passed, for example, the health care bill. Are we going to have to live with that forever, or can something be done at this stage?
If I have anything to say about it, we're not going to have to live with that forever. We're not even going to have to live with it in the sense that we should be able to get rid of it before it takes full effect. There is going to be some pain in the process, and it's going to take us a little while to do it. But there's kind of a 2- or 3-pronged plan of attack. First of all, there are lawsuits going on all over the country. I applaud those lawsuits. I'm glad that the state of Utah is a plaintiff in one of those lawsuits. I think those lawsuits are most appropriately directed at the constitutionality of the bill's most critical provision, what I call the keystone of the bill, which is the individual insurance coverage mandate that says everybody has to buy the kind of health insurance that Congress in its infinite wisdom says is appropriate. And if you don't buy it, you'll get fined and you'll eventually go to prison. You take that out, the whole thing crumbles. Fortunately, it's that provision that I believe is most constitutionally suspect. Even under the Supreme Court's dramatically expansionist view of the Commerce Clause and the Spending Clause, I think that's very difficult to reconcile. I think there's a good chance we'll get Justice Scalia, Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Chief Justice Roberts to vote with us. Justice Stevens, Justice Sotomayor, Justice Ginsburg, and Justice Breyer will vote no. Anthony Kennedy will be in the middle. Which way he votes will depend on what he had for lunch that day, which law court he assigns to it, and what the New York Times is saying, what his horoscope that week reads.
A threat to Obama.
So, but I think there's a chance we could get the Supreme Court to strike it down. If it doesn't, recognizing that it might not, or that it might take a while, I do think there's a good chance the Republicans will take control of both houses of Congress this year. If that does happen, I will push to make sure the first thing we do when we take power in January 2011 is to repeal Obamacare. Now, our president will veto it, and we almost certainly won't have the votes to override that veto by 2/3 in both houses. But we can mess with his budget, and that'll be really fun. We will defund the implementation of every aspect of that legislation, and we can do that because he can't just create money much as he wishes he could. Congress can, and the Federal Reserve can, unfortunately, but he can't. He has to come to us. And if he wants a budget, if he wants the federal government not to shut down, he will eventually have to allow a budget appropriation from Congress that we will pass without funding for those programs. They'll eventually have to allow that to come along.